Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on the condolence motion for Nelson Mandela. And I can only echo the remarks that have been made by other members. Nelson Mandela was a great individual. He will be remembered as one of the great individuals of the 20th century and someone who fought for civil rights in the same way that Gandhi and Martin Luther King did. It seems incredible, but when Nelson Mandela was released in 1990, we had no images of him. There had been no images of him available for 20 years. The photos that were used in stamps at the time were taken from his trial in the 1960s. People, younger people, might not even remember the period where South African teams did not compete internationally for 20 years. We had a number of Australian cricketers who would go on rebel cricket tours of South Africa, but under the Gleneagles Agreement, for 20 years, South Africa was an international pariah in the sporting world. I wanted to speak briefly about some personal experiences with respect to South Africa. I had the opportunity to work in South Africa in late 1989 and early 1990. I worked in a hospital in KwaZulu, which was then a non-independent homeland. And it was an interesting time. 1989, the previous president of South Africa, Mr. Botha, had been replaced by F.W. de Klerk. The Berlin Wall had come down. Some members of the ANC had been released, but not Mandela. And I remember it was obvious that the system of apartheid was unsustainable, that South Africa had really been held back by the way that they had sanctions imposed on them around the world. I do remember, although many elements of apartheid were then illegal, being in the Northern Transvaal and still seeing the signs in banks, Europeans only, and at a time when that was no longer allowed for. I remember being at staying with a family on the 2nd of February 1990 when the news revealed that the President de Klerk had decided to remove the remaining pillars of apartheid, unban the ANC, and subsequently he released Nelson Mandela. And I remember at that time, this family, it was something that they welcomed, but they thought it took their breath away. They had not expected it so soon. I also remember distinctly when Mandela became president in April 1994 and hearing on the ABC his acceptance speech. It was absolutely electrifying, and I have to confess, I'm pretty sure I was late to work that day, just stopped in the car listening to Mandela's acceptance speech. When you consider how South Africa could have gone, and when you compare the path that South Africa has taken with the path that Zimbabwe has taken, you see how important Mandela's approach has been. The way he was able to forgive but not forget, the enormous grace he showed, the way he was always prepared to build a bridge with people who previously were violently opposed to him. Just in closing, I just did want to repeat the words that he gave almost 50 years ago in his Rivonia trial speech. And this is what he said: "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. They were his words. They were words he always lived by, and the world and South Africa has been a better place for him.